I'm female and have had a severe case of agoraphobia since I was 6 years old. I'm 19 now, but this was during 2005 or 2006. In the country I live in there were no psychiatrists for kids, only regular doctors, but they weren't helpful anyway. Nobody knew what was wrong with me until 2012, when I was diagnosed. So, me, my parents and the rest of the family were desperate and felt helpless. Then someone my parents knew well had informed us to see a hypnotherapist in a town a while away from ours. We went, but don't ask me how I managed to keep my panic attacks at bay during the trip. I didn't. The man we met was in his late 60s or early 70s and seemed so nice, understood me, and didn't think I was a nutjob. Anyway, I saw a salvation in him and kinda looked at him as my grandparent. There were some red flags, of course, but as a 6-year-old child I've missed them all. My mother was always afraid of him because he insisted on doing the therapy alone with me in another room while she waited. First few therapies were okay, not very helpful, but okay. That is until one day when I asked him, while already lying in his couch, to go to the toilet. To which he replied with, "Do you need to pee or poop?" Sure, it was a weird question, but I thought he had asked it to know how long will I be on the toilet. Boy, was I wrong. I answered that I needed to pee and he put his fingers down my lady parts. This got me so confused. I still, of course, had no idea about sex, but it still felt weird. I didn't tell my parents. I cried a lot but thought that I needed to suck it up because I will no longer be afraid nor have panic attacks and such. Since then, he didn't do it anymore. Thank God. He called my parents on regular basis when we came home, asking them to let me go on a vacation with him, which of course they politely declined. Few years after, he is arrested for child pornography and have raped a few boys. It all clicked in my head and I told my parents everything. We went to the police, gave statements, and that was it. He died in prison from natural causes. Even though you're dead, I hope we will never meet in the afterlife or whatever is up there. I was 12, and had come down with a suspected case of glandular fever. So my mum booked me in with our family GP. Mum loved him, he had delivered my sister 8 years earlier and we had been seeing him ever since. Mum and I are in the waiting room. She's flipping through the crappy magazines and I'm just watching the fish in the tank. The receptionist pops her head out to call my name, so my mum turns to me and says, "You're old enough now to go in by yourself." A bad feeling hits the pit of my stomach. I shake my head and insisted that she come with me. There was never a nurse or anyone else present during appointments, and there was no way I was going in alone. Now, nothing weird had ever happened with our doctor before, he was always professional and kind. But this time I felt uneasy. He was checking my lymph nodes for inflammation. The ones in my neck were all swollen. Then he checked my armpits. They were also swollen. I'm getting a weird vibe, a bad vibe, like he was enjoying it. Mum didn't notice. Finally he checks my groin, swollen. I was very uncomfortable with him by this point. It just felt weird. Gut feeling bad. The diagnosis, glandular fever. We left and I didn't say anything about the experience. A couple of months later, our doctor abruptly left the practice. The new doctor was a lovely lady, so I breathed a sigh of relief to see him gone. 4 years later, Mum comes into my room and says, "Remember Dr. Gardiner? Well, he's in jail for molesting his friends' kids while they were all away on holiday." She tells this to me with surprise. No shit. I related my experience to her. She was shocked and had no idea. That was weird in itself, as Mum has had weird premonitions over the years. I'm so glad that I insisted that my mum accompany me in with that pedo doctor. It could have been a lot worse than just that bad gut feeling. A little backstory. A few years ago I got my tonsils out, and I should mention that I am well into my 30s. I thought it would be a fairly simple recovery given that every time I'd ever heard about someone getting their tonsils out, that someone was a child. Blending what I learned from television, my friends and the internet, it seemed like it would be a breeze. I'd just live on ice cream and mashed potatoes, watch lots of Netflix and sleep. Spoiler alert, it was not a breeze. I found myself in the emergency room at 3 in the morning 7 days after my surgery with blood in my throat and the worst pain I could ever even imagine. It was a really bad night, made just a little bit worse with the fact that I was alone. I was being really tough about it though. After I'd been triaged and admitted to a room, I tried to make myself comfortable and turn on the TV. The room was fairly large for an ER room. I searched through the channels and found something I wanted to watch, probably HGTV to be honest, and decided to text my boss to let him know I probably wouldn't be in the next day. I dug for my phone in my purse, found it, and when I looked up I realized there was a man in my room. I knew immediately that this man was not in his right mind. He was youngish, wearing a dirty t-shirt and khaki shorts, and stared at me, unblinking. "Hi, can I help you?" I asked. The man continued staring at me and said nothing. "I don't think you're supposed to be in here," I said, trying to be polite. He said nothing but began advancing toward my bed slowly. My heart was racing and I was thinking, leave it to me to be murdered in an emergency room. I don't remember what I said next, only that it was some version of, "You're not supposed to be here, please leave." But he kept advancing. He was steps away from my bed when 3 cops rushed into the room. The 3 of them put their hands in front of them defensively but used very polite and soothing tones. They said things like, "Wrong room buddy," and "Let's go this way," but they never touched him. Somehow they were able to coax him out the door and down the hall, closing the door behind them. It was surreal. I almost could have thought I imagined the whole thing, except a few minutes later the doctor came in to see me and immediately addressed and apologized for my surprise visitor. "Yeah, we have an off his meds situation," he said, as though that explained everything. Being in a hospital is truly where we are most vulnerable, and I hadn't until then realized how completely mashed together and exposed we can be. Nothing happened, but it totally could have in those minutes we were alone together. Anyway, I lived to see another day, but guy in the hospital. Let's not meet again.